Darla, look, John Wick is shooting all these guys using proper gun technique, and he always reloads that Heckler & Koch P30L every 15 shots. Look, he has to reload right now, right in the middle of getting that guy. He reloads, isn't that cool? Darla's not a big fan of this movie because, you know, the whole opening scene. I don't let her watch that part, but she knows what happens at the beginning of the movie. I'm Erik Voss, and this is The Deep Dive. Let's deep dive into 2014's John Wick, the first film of the John Wick series, starring Keanu Reeves, directed by Chad Stahelski, written by Derek Kolstad, and stunts by Stahelski and David Leitch. With John Wick Chapter 4 coming, let's analyze the details that make the first John Wick film work so well. As expansive as the John Wick mythology gets in the sequels, its playful world building is really made possible by the first film's strict adherence to a set of rules. It's a game that pays the price for its heightened reality by minding its manners with details few other franchises care about. So here they are, the John Wick rules. Number 1, you may only kill people who are also part of the game in approved zones. So no collateral damage to innocents or to NPCs. Number 2, respect for firearms must be observed. Number 3, all legal transactions must be made with approved currency, in this case, gold coins. And number 4, don't make a mess, which is kind of the catch-all rule of don't be a dick. These are the rules followed by assassins in the world of the film and by the filmmakers in a certain respect. And these rules allow everyone involved to go to some wild places. So let's go back through this film scene by scene to see how all these rules apply. And the best way to support the Deep Dive channel is to grab some Deep Dive merch from nerdriot.shop, like one of these super warm, cozy Fetterman hoodies. The film opens in the final scene as John crashes Vigo's SUV and bleeds from the fight. The car radio announcer reports how the storm has passed 7 inches of rain the night before, stranding New Yorkers without power. This is some thematic table setting for the storm we're about to flash back into, and exposition that establishes the first rule: non-killers must be sidelined. Everyday New Yorkers in this film are just not part of this underworld war. John watches video of his deceased wife Helen.
What are you doing, John?
What are you doing, John? In Greek mythology and in history, Helen of Troy was the woman so beautiful men went to war over her. But in this film, those were wars of the past. John already won those wars, and that's how he was able to get out. So we flash back to a few days earlier. John going through his 6 a.m. morning routine, but something's missing. He pats his bedside as he wakes up. Helen isn't there. Her daisy-decorated mug is beside his by the coffee, while her hospital bedside has an orchid hanging over her. Lower by her pillows are daisies, and of course, daisies on her bracelet, and a daisy on the card she later sends John. When her casket is lowered, John has an 8-spoked umbrella, but when he talks to Marcus, it switches to a larger 16-spoked umbrella. This isn't just a random dumb mistake, there's a practical reason behind it. When Keanu Reeves is shot from below, he can have a smaller umbrella because you just need to see him from below, and he can hold it over his head without getting rain on him. But when he's shot from the side in the scene with Willem Dafoe, the actor has to tilt the umbrella back so that you can see his face, and thus they need a wider canopy so that they can get clean audio without the actor and the microphone getting all wet. John says he keeps asking, why her?
There's no rhyme or reason to this life.
Marcus implies that the outside world, real life, really has no rules to it. Fate is cruel that way. Only in the underworld are there rules that you can live according to. And one could argue those rules are the reason the underworld exists, so that these violent players can live in a world that makes some sense. John accidentally keeps the delivery person's pen, showing how he instinctively keeps every writing implement in case he needs a weapon. Vigo later states that he once saw John kill a man with a pencil. And killing some guys with pencils is something John does in Chapter 2. Notice also that John wears his watch facing the inside of his wrist, whereas other times, like when he drives, he wears it facing out. This is because when John is in fighting mode, he faces it inward, similarly to how soldiers will wear their watches so that they can see the time while they're holding a rifle, and to keep the watch face from accidentally reflecting light. Helen has written that John needs something to love, and the car doesn't count. The dog, Daisy, and his car, 2 things Yosef will later take from him. Keanu's emotion is raw here. In 2001, his longtime girlfriend Jennifer Syme died in a car accident after giving birth to their stillborn child the year before. Years later, in 2019, Keanu was asked about life after death.
What do you think happens when we die, Keanu Reeves?
I know that the ones who love us will miss us.
The color tones of this movie switch from warm and golden to show John's happy home life with Daisy and his past with Helen, to cold and blue for his bitter, vengeful life, to stark red and green for the stop-and-go regulated gameplay of the underworld. Then back to warm and golden in the final shot. John doesn't have kibble for Daisy, and when they go to get some at the gas station, you can see not only dog food in the backseat, but a ton of dog toys too. Now, this is in New Jersey, and in Jersey, gas stations are supposed to be full service. You don't pump your own gas. But again, we do not have to look at this as a gaffe, because John and Yosef and his guys aren't part of the normal world. They are creatures of the underworld who play by different rules, and gas station attendants don't with them, or even tell Yosef not to smoke at a gas station. Yosef, Alfie Allen, Theon Greyjoy from Game of Thrones, mistakes John's 1969 Mustang GT for a 1970 429 Boss Mustang.
How much?
She's not for sale.
Yeah, Yosef assumes everything has a price and tries to force John into a transaction. Remember, even financial transactions are regulated among these players. Yosef's bodyguard, Victor, pulls Yosef away and tells John to have a good day. Victor's actually played by Toby Leonard Moore, Kingpin's assistant Wesley from Daredevil, and Victor knows who John is and is more cautious about threatening him at first. John pulls up to the airport for some rage drifting. The guard at the gate is reading this book, Shibumi. It's a 1979 book in which the protagonist uses the art of the naked kill, in which you use everyday items to kill people. Everyday items like a beansel. I do appreciate that it's actually Keanu behind the wheel for a lot of this. Keanu Reeves is a disciplined student of proper firearm usage, martial arts, and a variety of stunts, and it shows. Later in the club balcony fight, Keanu was sick and throwing up between takes, but he kept powering through. This whole movie is a family reunion of Reeves' co-stars and his stunt team from the Matrix films. Chad Stahelski was a stunt double in the Matrix trilogy, David Leitch works stunts on the sequels, Daniel Bernhardt, who plays the security captain Kirill in this movie, was one of the stunt actors and the agent that Morpheus fights atop the truck in The Matrix Reloaded. The keymaker for Matrix Reloaded, Randall Duck Kim, plays the Continental Doctor in this movie. All of these guys reunited on a mission for this film. This history between Reeves and his crew and their commitment to the taken for granted art of authentic film stunt work exposes John Wick not merely as a story of an ex-assassin who avenges his dog, but a root myth of a decent man restoring honor to the game. The rules matter. Yosef triggers this restoration by stealing John's car and killing Daisy. And this is gonna break your heart, trigger warning, but when Daisy gets hurt, she is several feet away from John, but when John wakes up from the attack, there is a trail of blood showing that Daisy limped over to him to cuddle with him in her dying moments. Don't tell Darla about that detail. And after burying Daisy in the backyard, he places her collar on his nightstand behind Helen's bracelet. And we also see how these jerks left a baseball bat, the one that they used to kill Daisy, in the windshield of the SUV, the car that Helen drove. John Leguizamo Aurelio punches Yosef and refuses to give him a new VIN and papers for the car because he knows that Yosef violated the rules. He attacks someone who wasn't in the game in that moment and stole from him out of bounds, and that person just happened to be the Babayega. And I love it. From the moment Aurelio tells Vigo that Yosef crossed John Wick, Vigo changes in this movie. He is unable to enjoy his business victories because he knows his world will soon inevitably come crashing down.
Because you stole John Wick's car, sir, and killed his dog.
Oh.
I love it. Oh. Yosef's response later is the same as his father's.
Well, John wasn't exactly the boogeyman. He was the one you sent to kill the boogeyman. Oh.
Vigo pours his son a drink and cheers him, but he doesn't himself drink his vodka, showing that he doesn't actually support the reason they're toasting. As Vigo tells John's ghost story, we see John clearing the concrete rubble from his basement floor, literally digging up the grave of his past. And the film unveils the gold coins, both in John's case and in Vigo's safe. The fact that John buried these shows that they have no monetary exchange equivalent. They are only useful for goods and services in the assassin underworld, a world that John never intended to go back to, like tokens to a long-abandoned arcade. Because let's not forget, this is all a game that is currently broken and needs to be repaired. When John showers, we see on his back is tattooed Fortis Fortuna Aduvat, which is Latin for fortune favors the bold, or favors the brave, or the strong. It means kind of all the same thing. And as Vigo sings his Babayega lullaby, we see his men surrounding John's house, but in reality, Vigo is singing a lullaby for them. They are the ones under threat, for John is actually coming for them. The fight in John's home is awesome, and it takes place in 3 acts, each act punctuated by John having to reload. It's not the shooting that matters in this movie, it is the reloading. Act 1 starts on the 2nd floor and ends on the ground level, where John promptly reloads, because John never fires more shots than his firearm would have the capacity for. Rule number 2, proper respect for firearms, is always shown in this movie. It's also evident in the way John shoots his enemies. He almost always shoots once or twice to the chest and then again to the head. Like notice after he shoots the guy who falls down the stairs, he follows through with another shot to the head. So Act 2 of this fight goes down in the living room, and when a wall separates John from another guy, John ducks low bow and shoots upward at where the guy's head would be, while the guy shoots directly across at where he thinks John's head would be, and because John was ducking, he misses. So John anticipated the headshot, and then when John throws this guy through the glass door, he reloads again and finishes him, because he fired off 9 shots between the reloads, and the reloading is always observed. That brings us to Act 3 of this fight in the kitchen. Here, John's gun gets knocked out early on, so he has to show his hand-to-hand combat skills. It ends with a solid 45-second take in the hallway where John grapples with the knife and punches the butt of the handle into the guy's chest again and again until it pokes him enough until he dies. And then one of my favorite moments in this movie, Thomas Sadoski plays Jimmy the cop in one of the most important and hilarious moments from this film.
You working again?
No, just sorting some stuff out.
I'll leave you be then.
Now, one of the hardest things to write in high concept films or small setting but high stakes conflicts is how do you keep the police and the press out of the story? Because whenever this outside world gets in the picture, it's just kind of logically forced to become a standard procedural. But this moment right here proves that the authorities have a kind of gentleman's agreement with the assassin underworld. They know it exists, but they do not interfere so long as the players follow the rules and don't make a mess. So to keep from making a mess, John makes a call for a dinner reservation for 12 and counts out 12 coins for Charlie to clean up the 12 bodies, 1 coin per body, like game tokens per life taken. Charlie is played by David Patrick Kelly, who had the famous line in the 1979 film The Warriors. So when Vigo visits Marcus, Marcus is making carrot juice. Carrots rich in vitamin A, good for eyesight for a sharpshooter like Marcus. Vigo offers Marcus a contract, but notice how Marcus never says yes explicitly, only
Consider it done.
a sly way of saying, this will be over soon for you. Marcus assembles his weaponry set to Marilyn Manson's Killing Strangers. We're killing strangers so we don't kill the ones that we love. Marcus in this movie snipes Vigo's men so that he doesn't have to kill his friend John. And we arrive at the Continental Hotel, which in real life is the Beaver Building in Manhattan's financial district. John is greeted by Charon, played by Lance Reddick. Now in Greek mythology, Charon is the ferryman of the river Styx in the underworld, whom you must pay for safe passage, just as John must pay the concierge for safe haven as he transitions into this underworld. John finds the door to the secret club accessed with another coin, like an arcade token. And inside, the lighting is all red and green, red specifically framed with Winston Ian McShane, the owner of the hotel and the game master, sort of the Hades of this underworld. He's always shown in red here, for he is kind of the traffic cop, the stoplight, whereas John is framed in green in their conversation because he's the go-go-go light. The Continental just kind of represents the traffic intersection for the underworld, a heavily regulated stop-and-go safe zone. But Vigo, we find out, is breaking those rules by doubling the bounty for any assassin who will kill John in the hotel.
If they're willing to break the rules of Continental, double the bounty.
So we learn that John's purpose isn't just revenge, it's really to restore honor to the game after craven game rigging crept in his absence. This is why Winston allows Abby the bartender to tell John that Vigo hid Yosef at the Red Circle, because Winston wants John to restore meaning to his rules. Now the name of this club, the Red Circle, is an homage to Le Cercle Rouge, a 1970 French crime noir that was a major influence on this film. John sticks up Francis the bouncer, played by Kevin Nash,
Ты похудел. 20 килограммов.
and John lets him take the night off. 60 pounds lost. Now, in Francis's Russian, he actually said 20 kilograms, which is about 44 pounds, but Nash confirmed in an interview that by saying 60 pounds, he was signaling to John that there were 60 guards inside, and that is why John spared him.
You couldn't lose that much weight, and that was actually me telling them how many people were in there.
Now, technically 60 pounds would be like 27 kilograms, which is roughly the amount of guys that John actually does kill inside. Now, the bathhouse is bathed in blue and red light, and I love the lateral shot as John slays the guy against the misted window and then stabs his bald guy up through the chin, looking him in the eye as they both descend. And at the lowest level, John's face goes from blue to blood red in the light. Now, John nearly has a clean shot at Yosef, but Yosef has a woman with him in that hot tub. Another important rule, only players in the game can be killed. Now, you could argue that Yosef's company and the attendees of this Russian-owned club are all part of the game, but John never crosses that line. Only Yosef does a bit later when he uses this poor woman as a human shield. So John now switches to a Heckler & Koch P30L. And if you count all the shots in the scene, he always reloads after 15 rounds to adhere to its magazine capacity. On the dance floor, he actually fires to the beat of the dubstep music, so that only the people in the immediate vicinity freak out, but the other dancers don't panic, because panic would lead to more crossfire and potential collateral damage. John enters the VIP room, and he only shoots the guys in the red shirts, Star Trek red shirts, and he spares everyone else. Now, if you had counted, he had fired 7 shots on the dance floor, and he fires 8 shots in this room. That's 15. So he runs out, click, and here here he just uses a pistol to jab the guy's neck and then takes a moment to reload and then shoots him in the head. Now in many scenes of these movies, Keanu also tends to reload the pistol correctly by pulling the back of the slide instead of putting his hand over it to avoid catching his hand on the open ejection port. This kind of attention to detail continues to John Wick Chapter 2, where at one point he uses a Kimber 1911 and does a press check because these guns are known for jamming. Now for whatever reason, people think this press check detail's in the first movie, but it's not. It's in Chapter 2. And then as John enters the balcony, he reloads again, always reloads. The balcony lieutenant is actually played by Tate Fletcher, a stunt actor who does the physical performance of Paz Vizsla in The Mandalorian. But John finally hits a roadblock with Kirill, Keanu facing an actor who played an agent. Kirill throws John over the balcony, and it is just a painful thud. Now, this is one stunt the insurers of this movie would not allow Keanu Reeves to do, so they hid a cut in the light lens flare and the camera tilt so the stunt actor didn't fall from the full distance. Matrix Reloaded keymaker Randall Duck Kim stitches John up.
Your stitches will tear and you'll bleed, but you'll have full function.
An important detail, setting up the final fight. Remember this. So Marcus gets John in his crosshairs as he recovers, and some have pointed out the slight breeze in Marcus's hair to say that Marcus might be accounting for the wind and his bullet trajectory, which is why the bullet hits the pillow to the left. No. At that small range just across the street, there is no way that slight of a breeze would affect a sniper rifle bullet by that much. Marcus just aimed for the pillow when he shot the pillow to warn his friend. The real detail here is that the framing makes it seem like Marcus has betrayed John and is racing to beat Miss Perkins to the kill into the bounty, but the reality is that Marcus is just there to protect his friend after Vigo told him the contract bounty would be open. That's why Marcus asked if it was a closed contract. He was trying to figure out, are there going to be a lot of people trying to kill my friend? See folks, that is the secret of Easter eggs. They are meant for you to enjoy the emotional subtext of a scene, not to take you out of it with some bullshit hot take someone wrote on Reddit. So as John fights Perkins, both of them weaponize cloth in the scene. All the fights are just well designed. John uses his arm sling to twist the gun out of her hand and choke her. He wraps a sheet around her head and punches it. She uses her leather jacket as a gi to perform a Brazilian jiu-jitsu wing choke. So then John enters a Russian church and he shoots everyone with Russian tattoos on their hands, including the organist, except this one old woman. This is one attendee who's not part of the game. She's just there to actually worship. And John torches all of Vigo's normal currency in his vault. But you can see he also has quite a few assassin gold coins in there. So John is limiting Vigo's options, both in the underworld and in the real world. Later, Vigo says that included the leverage he had all over the city, audio recordings, physical evidence, blackmail, because John, to get out of the game to be with Helen, he had to kill enough people to give Vigo his empire. So essentially, John is taking back everything he had given to Vigo. Later, when he has John captured, Vigo says that both of them, by trying to have a family, John his wife, Vigo his son, violated the spirit of the game and left them cursed.
This life follows you, clings to you. We are cursed, you and I.
And so it's implied that there's some divine order to this world. To try to leave the game or to cheat at it, fate makes you pay some cost. Now, in the safe house, Grigory plays a shooter game, Dust 514, and his player name is Neo, and one of the players he kills is Point Break. John snipes all of Yosef's bodyguards, and he catches up to Yosef, who tries to say, "It was just a dog," before John puts him down like a dog. Metaphor never really liked. Why would anyone ever shoot a dog? Vigo, meanwhile, tortures and kills Marcus for helping John and leaves Marcus's body without calling Charlie to clean it up. That's a major rule broken, folks. He left a mess. And so even though John acquired his revenge against Yosef, he returns to the underworld to deliver justice upon Vigo, because John is back in this game and he considers himself a defender of the honor of the game. That is his root myth. And we also see this game claiming Miss Perkins. Winston catches up with her at the Central Park Bethesda fountain. That's the same location where Winston will meet John at the end of Chapter 2. All in one efficient shot, she is executed. Winston walks toward us. He passes a coin to Charlie, and Charlie's crew moves in. Done and done. Winston again intervenes as a game referee to help John punish Vigo for breaking the rules. He says we live by a code, which is why I'm not the one telling you that a certain helicopter at a certain helipad is being fueled for a certain someone. Now, the subtitle design of this film is really fun, but I love this shot of Vigo. Behind us is literally behind Vigo when he turns back to see John chasing them. Even behind the wheel, John uses impressive firearm technique. He fires up through the roof to kill the guy he backs into, and then when he leans out the window to shoot another guy, 2 shots to the chest, 1 to the head. And while charging another shooter, he makes sure to reload again. After the lawyer Avi asks for a gun repeatedly, Vigo holds off until his other guys are dead so that Avi will run off and draw John away so that Vigo can ram John with the SCV. And we end up in a final one-on-one fight. Vigo pulls out a knife, and John, remembering what the keymaker doctor told him back in the hotel, the stitches on his tummy gash have already opened probably, so John allows Vigo to stick him back in that same cut so that he can break Vigo's arm arm and take the knife and stick Vigo in the shoulder. And so we circle back to the opening and we learn why John had to hear Ellen's voice in this moment.
Come on, John. Let's go home.
So we went from "what are you doing, John" to "let's go home." And John finds a pet clinic and finds a pit bull in a kennel that, if you look closely at the paperwork, is marked "to be put down." They literally have a stamp for "to be put down." And as John walks this dog home, the color tone switches from cold blue back to warm golden. This is the same Brooklyn Bridge Park walkway along the East River that this movie's first act flashed back to John and Helen on their date. John has earned an extra life, not by scoring just his personal revenge, but by restoring the honor of the rules. And I love breaking down these rules of John Wick, and I cannot wait to see Chapter 4. Please support us by grabbing some Deep Dive merch at nerdriot.shop. You can subscribe to the Deep Dive, turn those notifications on, share this channel with everyone you know, follow me at Erik Voss. Thanks for watching, and dos vidania, my Babayegas at the deep.